All right, here I'm just going to explain this experiment really well, mainly so that Ishank's parents and maybe brother can explain it to him later and he can be thinking about it, because you got to be ready to explain at the science fair. So we have this simple motor right here, which is a bunch of little magnets. They're underneath this plastic thing. So the reason why this plastic thing is here is so that they won't spin off. When it goes really fast, there's a chance the magnets could fly off, so it's holding the magnets on. And what's happening is, as the current goes through, this creates this into an electromagnet, and it repels the motor. And then this switch, once it repels a little bit, this reed switch connects. If you can look at it, see if I can get a shot of it. I can't really get a good shot of it. It's two little thin pieces of metal, and they close and open depending on these magnets being close to it. So once it gets going, what happens is the electromagnet turns off and on. And so it's basically like it's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and the switch is going off and on. When it's on, it repels. It gives it a little push. And when it's off, it just waits for it to keep spinning. So it's basically going like this. The electromagnet is basically just pushing it by repelling it, right? And so when you have a battery source here, a power source, and we connect it up, if you can look, we're going to create a circuit here while it's about to connect it. And the electricity will go through here, and now there it goes. The reed switch is going like this. And that keeps this motor going. Okay, disconnect it please. So what happened was, so we tried that, and we measured the speed using this meter here. So we hold this meter here, and this little device can measure how many times a magnet is going by it. And so when we ran the first with one battery, we used, it would tell us that it was going at about 60 magnets per second. So we took 6 Legos here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was our first test. And then we did a test with 2 batteries, and it told us it was in the frequency of 70 magnets per second. And then with 4 batteries, we got 10 for the first test and 9 for the second test. And what I'd asked the kids ahead of time was, did if I supplied twice as much power, like if I went from 1 to 2, would it go twice as fast? Would this motor spin twice as fast? And if I went from 2 to 4, would it go twice as fast? And they both thought that it would, even though they're shaking their heads right now. But now they know that it doesn't, because they've done their test. They realize that something is causing the motor not to perform 100% efficiently, because it doesn't double as it gets double the voltage or double the power. So we didn't have any really good explanations for that. It would require some additional testing. But what I explained to them was, in any kind of motor, there is also some energy goes towards the friction of just, when the motor spins, it loses some of the energy. It doesn't use the energy perfectly. It doesn't spin 100% of all the energy that goes through it. Some of it gets wasted by the friction, and also maybe a little bit of heat in the coil. So that's kind of what we learned about. And you can see we got our test results right there, and you can see how fast it went with 1 battery, how fast it went with 2, and then how fast it went with 4. And so part of our job in the science fair is explaining this thing that we did, which is called the scientific method, which is step 1, ask a question. Step 2, state your hypothesis, which is basically an educated guess. And step 3 is do an experiment like we just did. And step 4 is to state your conclusion. Our conclusion, the question was, will it go twice as fast with twice as much power? After we ran our test, our conclusion is that it doesn't do that. So that was our scientific test, and that's about it. So we created this video so you could watch it back, Ishank, and maybe even Wyatt, such that we can explain how the motor works, and then we can explain, most importantly, the part about the Anza Science Fair is the scientific method, making sure that you understand the scientific method. The experiment can be anything. So that's about it. And I think another important thing is we ran a couple of different tests to make sure that our results were valid, right? And so we didn't get the same exact results, but in any case, we could see that it didn't exactly double. So we know that that's the case. All right, thanks for joining and listening, and I'm going to post this to YouTube.